Hey guys, it's Dr. May. How are my procrastinators out there? Well, if you're a procrastinator, you came to the right place today because the topic is procrastination and how to deal with it, how to not let it take over your life. Okay, so if you're looking for some tips, you came to the right place. Okay, and here we go. Almost. Get a little bigger. Aha, there we go. Whoops, sorry. There we go. All right, procrastination. All right, so what is procrastination? So I'm sure you are kind of aware, but just to go over again, it's basically just putting off for tomorrow what you could do today, as they say. So it's like putting off and delaying things when you know you're supposed to get them done. And why is this such a problem? Well, first, because sometimes the things you have to get done are kind of important, and putting them off could create additional stresses, additional problems in your life, right? Another thing is in terms of a stress buildup, right? Let's say you're somebody that has a lot of stuff going on in your life, right? Like a lot of us do. And this just adds to your overall stress level. Just having that thing hanging over your head, knowing like, yeah, I know I got to get that done. I got to get that done, right? It just builds up on top of everything else that you're already doing, right? And if you're able to move past the procrastination, it lightens your load a little bit, allows you to just, feel like, all right, now I don't have to think about that. I finished it, right? So it's really important for us to address procrastination. Okay, so let's just kind of clarify some of the things and reflect on your own experience too. All right, so these are just some common examples of tasks that we procrastinate about doing. Okay, so for example, chores and housework, or maybe repairs around the house, right? Like let's say I had a back porch, and before I had it fixed up, I had to paint it every year. And sometimes it took a while before I finally got myself to paint it. Oh, I know I got to do it. It's peeling. I got to do it. I got to do it. Right. And I put it off, and it would be hanging over my head for like a while before I finally made myself do it. Right. So sometimes there's those things around the house, not our favorite, and we kind of procrastinate. Right. Other things, work or even homework. If you're in school, maybe there's some tasks that are less pleasant for you, or they're a big task and it takes a lot to get going on it. So you keep doing the easy stuff first and you keep pushing the hard stuff back, right? Sound a little familiar? Other things, making appointments. Let's say there's a doctor's appointment you need to make, or an appointment with your tax person to get your taxes done. And you have that hanging over your head. You know you're supposed to do it. You got to pick up the phone. You got to figure the good time. And then you put it off, right? So another little thing that could eat at you. Paying bills. Oh, if you already have money issues, right? And then those bills are piling up and they're on your kitchen table and you keep walking past them, but you know you got to do something about your money. You got to pay them, right? People are calling you, right? That's another area of procrastination. Exercise. A lot of us know we're supposed to do it, but we don't always get down to doing it, right? That's another thing. Breaking bad habits, right? Think about that. So instead of initiating something positive like exercise, sometimes it's like stopping doing something that you know is a problem, like smoking, right? I've heard a lot of people say, yeah, I know I'm supposed to stop smoking. I know it's bad for me. I know it costs a lot of money, but right? Breaking bad habit can be hard. It takes a lot of work. Easy to procrastinate about it. And even trying something new. Maybe there's something you've always wanted to do, you've always wanted to try, and it's hard to get going. Like maybe you need to take some steps to prepare, or you got to buy certain things first, or make certain arrangement first, and you procrastinate about doing those steps. And meanwhile, you're holding off on doing something that might be really fun and enriching in your life. All right, so something to think about. Do any of these areas sound familiar to you guys? Okay, reflect a little bit. Okay, but there's also interpersonal things we procrastinate about. So this even filters into our relationships, okay? Is there somebody that you keep thinking, oh, I gotta call her, or I gotta call him. I know I'm supposed to call, or I know I'm supposed to text, or whatever it is, and you keep procrastinating reaching out for one reason or another, right? So sometimes that happens. I know I even do that with people that I like. It's not even that I'm afraid of a bad conversation. Sometimes it's like, I just end up not doing it sometimes, and it keeps building up for me. All right, so we could even do it for people we love. Okay, Apologizing. Mm, you know you did something wrong. You know you're supposed to do that apology. You might have to face the person and what they react to. Easy to put it off, right? All right. Even on the flip side, what about like in a relationship or a newer relationship? It's a little hard to make yourself vulnerable enough to tell the person how much you care about them or how much you love them. Oh, that's so sad, right? Because we're afraid to put our heart out there. We're afraid to be get our heart broken. So some of the positive things we really want to say get unspoken, and we procrastinate about it, which is kind of sad, right? Even helping somebody, right? Maybe you always promised that you'd help your grandma, your mom, or neighbor, and somehow other things keep coming up, and you know you're supposed to help out, right? Doing your dear man skills or asking for something, maybe because you're afraid you won't get it, or you're afraid of the reaction of the person, so you don't ask for something that's important. And other times it could be even self-disclosing to somebody where, let's say you're in therapy and you always wanted to tell your therapist about this thing about you or this thing that happened to you, and you're a little scared about it. So you hold off. And meanwhile, it's this big thing on your mind and you're afraid to say it and you procrastinate about just opening up. All right. So that's another area. Do these sound familiar, guys? All right. Maybe, right? Okay, so one of the big questions, so why do we do this? All right, what are your thoughts about that? Thinking about yourself, thinking about your experience, what holds you back, right? There's different things sometimes that come up. Maybe it's the way we're thinking about it, the way we're feeling about it, okay? So I'm gonna give you some common reasons. So why do we procrastinate? One is fear of failure, especially, you know, we're afraid that thing won't work out, whether it's a task or whether it's something interpersonal, right? You're procrastinating asking somebody out on a date because you're afraid of being rejected, maybe, right? Um, Perfectionism. Sometimes we are very black and white about something we're going to set out to do. Like, if it doesn't come out perfectly, I'm just not going to do it at all. Even like the girl in the picture, like with art, I know sometimes that holds me back. Like, maybe the last painting I did, I wasn't super happy with. And so I procrastinate doing the next one because I'm afraid I'm going to be unhappy with the next one, right? So if we feel like, well, I'm not going to do it unless I think it's perfect or I know it's going to be great, it's going to hold us back forever because there's always that level of uncertainty. We never really know how it's going to be. Sometimes we're so overscheduled that whatever it is we're procrastinating about keeps going to the bottom of the list, right? We keep finding other things that end up coming first and we keep putting off that thing, right? So that's another reason. Just our culture of being overwhelmed, right? We have a lot of to-dos on our to-do list, okay? Valuing immediate rewards over long-term rewards, right? So I'm more valuing feeling happy now than doing the payoff later, right? So it might be a little uncomfortable to do the task right now. Maybe it requires a lot of effort or a lot of energy or difficult emotions. And so I'm avoiding that because I'd rather be happier now. But meanwhile, I'm going to suffer later because I'm not getting that thing done. Okay. And I'm stressing about not getting that thing done. Sometimes it's to our disadvantage not to have any deadlines. Like there's certain things in life that just really could just go on forever, right? Like if you have that closet you're supposed to clean out in your house, you could probably just keep closing the door of that closet and not doing it. And that could go on for like years, right? So if there's no deadline, sometimes it's easy to keep putting it at the bottom of the list. Or in school, let's say there's a term paper and it's due in 3 months from now. The fact that it's so far away makes it easy to procrastinate because I'd rather just have a fun weekend this weekend than to buckle down and write a term paper, right? So sometimes we have to set our own deadline. Otherwise, it's just not going to happen. We need that pressure, right, of the deadline. Just not be in the mood for the effort of the challenge, like I was kind of hinting at before, right? Some things just like, I get dread like having to concentrate that hard or focus that long or, you know, and we don't want to deal with it, so we procrastinate. Low energy levels. If you're tired, you really don't feel like doing much of anything. Or related to that, sometimes you're depressed and tired and you really just don't feel like doing anything, right? Or same thing if you can't focus, right? If you're tired and or you can't focus, it's hard to really do that task you're trying to do. Okay? All right. Now, emotions that get in the way, okay? So there's all different kinds of emotions that you could see here that could interfere with what we want to do, right? So if we're caught in fear, like if we're caught in being afraid of failure or afraid of rejection, we're probably going to procrastinate. If we're pissed at a person, we may not want to do them that favor right away, right? So that might get in the way of procrastinating. If we're sad and depressed, we just don't feel like doing anything. We feel guilty sometimes, like making that apology or doing that repair. You know, we kind of put that off just because it forces us to confront the guilt. We might just be uncomfortable with the interpersonal situation or the cognitive working situation. So we don't want to feel the uncomfortable feelings. Um, Unhappy is kind of like sad. Okay, and then shame. Sometimes like that might especially get in the way of an interpersonal situation or something where you're afraid you're gonna fail or you're not perfect. The shame is very tied up in perfectionism, okay? So think of all these emotions that get in the way and maybe think like, which ones are the common ones for me that get in the way, right? When I procrastinate about something, right? And once you identify those, you could throw in a little DBT skills for some emotion regulation, right? So you might have to do some of that in order to get yourself managing that emotion so you can get this thing done, okay? It all weaves together. Okay, so how to stop procrastinating, all right? The big question of the day, okay? So that's probably why you came here. Okay, so here's a few things to remember, all right? So when we, on a daily basis, day to day, when we go to sleep at night, we want to reflect back on our day and feel good about what we did, right? We want to feel like I did the best I could today. I accomplished certain things, and thinking about that puts my mind at ease and it helped me go to sleep, right? When there's things left unfinished, sometimes my mind keeps going and it's hard to shut it off. So doing that thing will help you get to sleep better at night on a day-to-day basis, okay? Next, in a longer sense, right? Think about toward the end of your life, which hopefully is a long ways away. Okay, I don't know how old you are right now, but I'm hoping for me it's a long ways away, right? So let's say I'm approaching the end of my life and I look back. I want to feel like I got done the things I wanted to get done. And I said the things to people I wanted to say, and I accomplished the things I wanted to accomplish. And I did all the things I always hoped to do. And I don't want to look back and regret and feel like, look how much time I wasted. Or I always wish I could have said this to this person and told them how much I care, or whatever it happens to be, right? So in a broader sense, we want to live our life in the kind of a way where when we look back at the end, we feel complete, right? We feel satisfied with how we did. And eliminating procrastination or reducing it helps in that process. Okay, does that make sense? All right. Okay, so tips for overcoming procrastination. These are just general day-to-day kinds of tips, okay? So sometimes it helps to make a to-do list. And within that list, maybe put things in order of priority. Like if there's something really important, make sure that that's done first or done toward the top of the list if there's a lot of things on your list. I know for me, I do this. I could speak personally about it. Especially if it's stuff at home. At work, I'm a little more focused. At home, sometimes I get a little lost. So I just write it down, you know? And as I do it, I just cross it off. And it makes me feel good to cross it off. I must get like a little jolt of dopamine or something every time I cross it off. And at least it prevents me from forgetting and getting distracted by other things. So I would recommend the to-do list, okay? If you're procrastinating because you're hesitating to confront the effort involved in a big task, think of how you could break it down, right? So even if you did a little piece of it, it's still a step, right? So, you know, maybe there's like something you have to buy first, or there's someone you have to call first, or there's certain materials you have to gather, or there's certain small things you could do as an initial step, right? Like maybe there's ways to do a little at a time, so at least you're doing some progress. So it's not like an all or nothing kind of a situation, okay? Like we're talking about with deadlines before, if there's no deadline, you might procrastinate indefinitely. So maybe set your own deadline, like something that's reasonable, you know, like you want to not make it too far away or too close, depending on, you know, the nature of the task, but having something concrete, maybe on your calendar or in your phone. Hey, Siri, set me an alarm for this time, right? That will help you focus. It could help. Get an accountability partner, like someone who's going to check on you, someone you have to report to tell them if you're really working on this thing. Okay, sometimes that helps. Maybe you can get a friend or a family member to be that accountability partner with you. And maybe you could do it for them too. Maybe there's something they want to, stop procrastinating about, and you could check in on them. So it could be a two-way street, right? Another thing is eliminate distractions. I know a lot of us get guilty of this. It's very easy not to buckle down and do your work when you're distracted by other things, whether it's kids running around the house, or it's things on social media popping up on your phone, or it's text on your phone, or it's other little things to do. Sometimes we just have to like clear the area and just get that one thing done, or do it when there's nobody else at home, or go to a quiet place in the library or something where your usual distractions aren't available. Okay, so that could help us focus also. Another tip is to try to make it fun. So if you're dreading it because you think it's going to be a chore, try to make the task itself a little more fun, or pair it with something that you think is fun. So for example, let's say you're not a big fan of vacuuming. It's kind of annoying. You got to take it out. You got to undo the wire. You got to plug it in. You got to move the furniture, right? It's a pain in the neck, right? But let's say I decided, you know what, I'm going to make it a little more fun. I'll put my earbuds in and play my favorite playlist while I'm vacuuming. So at least while I'm doing it, I'm enjoying myself a little bit more. Okay, so sometimes that can help us get over the hump a little bit. Okay, some more tips. Okay, I got them coming even more. One is, the first one on this page, acknowledging that procrastination is common and that it makes sense and that it just makes us human. Okay, so instead of procrastinating and then layering that extra layer of beating yourself up about it, which makes it even worse and probably makes you even more likely to procrastinate, try to just like validate yourself. Yeah, I know I'm procrastinating. This is a hard task for me. It's hard for me to face the feelings that come up when I think about doing it. A lot of people go through this too, right? So reminding yourself of these things and why it makes sense can help, okay? Forgive yourself for procrastinating. Offer yourself compassion because it's hard, right? So add the kindness on top of it rather than the contempt, okay? Another thing, DBT skill-wise, which is particularly relevant, although other DBT skills could probably come into play depending on the situation. Opposite to emotion action, right? So if you're not familiar with this, it basically means do the opposite of what you feel like doing, right? So if I feel like sitting on the couch and watching TV instead of vacuuming, I'll do the opposite of what I feel like doing. Instead of avoiding the vacuuming, I'm going to face the vacuuming and do it, right? I may not feel like starting this project, but I'm going to force myself to do it anyway. And remember that sometimes it's like move a muscle, change a thought. You do it, and then you get in the mood. Don't wait until you're in the mood to do it because you might just keep procrastinating, right? So take that first step, get yourself going, and then, the motivation might follow, okay? Remind yourself of the pros of doing the task. What are the good parts about getting this done? Maybe I'll finally accomplish this thing that I've been putting it off, and it's good to have this particular thing done. It's good to have that doctor appointment made. It's good to finally say, I'm sorry to this person, whatever it happens to be, okay? Remind yourself of the pros. Then, related to that, think of how you'll feel later after you do it. Maybe there'll be this final sense of relief, like, oh, thank God I got that done. You might feel good. You might feel like a rush, like this sense of accomplishment. It's sort of like, build mastery in the ABC Please. For those of you familiar with that skill from DBT, it's build mastery when you accomplish something and you feel good about yourself because you finally did it, right? So that's important too, as a reducing vulnerability to negative emotions. Use positive and motivating self-talk, right? Cheerlead yourself, psych yourself up to do it, okay? However that wording works for you, all right? Find some ways of talking yourself into it rather than talking yourself out of it, all right? And when you're done, reward yourself for your efforts, all right? In whatever way you like to pat yourself on the back in a safe way. Like don't, reward yourself for your efforts and go out and get smashed. I'm not saying that, okay? Let's do something healthy and positive to reward ourselves and make ourselves feel good for doing this difficult thing and overcoming the procrastination, all right? So I hope that helped. I was chock full of tips, so you can't complain about that. right? So I hope you weren't procrastinating watching this video, but if you were and you watched it, good for you. Okay, I'm glad you did it because I hope there's tips in here that'll get you going, all right? And move yourself to the next level of accomplishment. All right, well, thanks everybody, and I'll see you soon. Bye now.